And welcome back to the Financially Simple Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread. Let me tell you, sometimes in life, man, it just throws a curveball at you. Or in this case, maybe a football, or maybe some big old dude who's a big old safety. Joining me today is my dear friend, Mr. Derrick Furlow. How are you, brother?
I'm doing incredible, Justin. How you doing this morning?
Buddy, I'm greatly blessed and highly favored on this beautiful East Tennessee day. Man, haven't we had some amazing weather this last week or so here in East Tennessee?
Man, it's been good. No complaints on this end, brother. No complaints at all.
So let me tell you about Derrick, my guest today. Derrick actually played football as safety with the University of Tennessee. You guys won some games there, didn't you?
We did win some games. We could have won a lot more if it wasn't for those Florida boys.
Oh, goodness. So I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm actually a Bulldog. Did you know that?
I was supposed to be a Bulldog. At least I thought I was. So you're okay with me as long as we beat y'all.
I don't know which year it was. I mean, I know one of those years Tennessee should not have won, and all of a sudden that was the Hail Mary, you know, where they jump up in the end zone, and like you weren't in there, were you? On that group, were you?
No, that was after me, but I watched. We made a critical error that gave y'all the lead, and we made up for it. So I was okay with that ending that way.
I got to tell you, I was talking trash all the way up to that game and afterwards. You know, being here in Knoxville, where my wife's from, I like to, you know, I'll cheer for the Volunteers as long as they're not playing my Bulldogs. But then every time the Bulldogs come, I got this loud mouth, as you well know, and I started talking trash that game. I think one of my friends, it might have been that game or a game before that, I actually took my Ugga dog. I actually have this little stuffed animal Ugga dog, and they hung him from the ceiling and like F-A-T. It was bad. They just like hung my dog from the ceiling. It was bad. But no, it was all in jest.
Don't talk trash until the clock strikes 0-0-0, brother. Lesson learned.
Lesson learned. So we're going to do some lessons today. So I've asked D-Lo as he goes by. Derrick is a public speaker. He's an author. We're going to have all sorts of links inside the show today, both on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. And on the, so we're going to go to Financially Simple. You can read all about him and his successes and his personality. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm so excited to have Derrick here with us today because I want to deal with this idea around rapid change. This idea around a pivot. You know, we have dealt with, Derrick, this unbelievable world this year, 2020. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day that whenever we give our client gifts out this year, I think it's going to be like a little sticker that says, I survived 2020. I mean, it's been an amazing year.
Yes.
But when we look at this, we have seen our business owners and so many Americans who are on every different part of life are having to pivot. They're having to change. And I just know that you've got this awesome story from one of your days on the field where the moment in a minute's notice, the game changed. Let's talk about this idea around a pivot. So let's start off with maybe an awesome story that you've had, that you've experienced, that you've seen, that you've watched about this idea around a pivot.
Man, well, I got a few, but I want to take this to where people can personally feel it on every single level. So, being born and raised in Southwest Atlanta by a single mom, in the midst of the drugs, the violence, and despair all around us, my mom moved us from place to place to place. So we was always moving growing up. So I wasn't sure what my life was going to be like, or how I was going to find my way to this life that I really wanted for myself. So eventually we ended up moving out of Southwest Atlanta down to Griffin, Georgia. We get down to Griffin, Georgia. My mom meets what's today her husband. Well, life changes for the better. And at this point, I get a chance to play organized sports for the first time. Because prior to that, we couldn't afford it. Right. So I start playing organized sports. I get to high school. And at this point, Justin, I'm in Georgia. Everybody's bigger than me, stronger than me, faster than me. I wasn't even the best athlete. Yeah. But I get I get to high school, and all of a sudden, I played basketball, football, and track. And my coaches said, hey, you can be good at sports. So I knew I wanted a better life. I wasn't sure how I was going to get it. And growing up where I grew up, you either rap, you sold drugs, or you played sports. So when they said I could be good at sports, I was kind of like, hey, maybe this sports thing can give me this better life I wanted, right? So as soon as my freshman year ends, my stepdad gets this great promotion. He gets this great raise. But Justin, they didn't tell us it came with this incredible move. So we had to move from Georgia, the place I had grown up most of my life, to a place called Crossett, Arkansas. Now, Justin, I don't know if you've ever been to Arkansas, but if you haven't, you're a lucky man.
I've driven through there one time.
That's the only reason to go there is to drive through there. So I'm like, I'm not moving. Well, eventually the house sales. I couldn't go stay with my dad and my stepmom. So eventually we had to move. So we get to Arkansas, Justin, and that's when life got serious. So I get there. I was mad. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was upset because I finally kind of came to my own when I got to high school, starting to develop this brand and this ego for myself as a young man. And it's all took away from me because my mom is doing what's best for the family, but my stepdad got this great promotion. So I get there and I come up with my first plan I ever had in my life because I wanted to get out of Arkansas and I wanted to go back to Georgia. So I said, I'm gonna come up with me to get out of Arkansas plan. So the get out of Arkansas plan was simple. I was gonna play basketball, track, or football and get me a full ride scholarship back to the University of Georgia. That was the plan.
Gotcha.
Well, at this point, Justin, I wasn't sure what sport I was good at. So I come in during football season. I knew it was some pretty good guys on the team. I didn't play as much that first year. I played enough, but not as much as I wanted to. So I didn't develop the get out of Arkansas plan yet. Basketball season comes around. We're literally like 3 games into the season. Christmas break comes up. We go to Atlanta. We come back. Coach said, hey, you got to run 500 bleachers because you missed practice and you missed games. I told him I didn't like basketball that much. So basketball's out the window. Track season comes around. I was good at it, but I hated running because it felt like punishment, Justin. So track is out the window. So at this point, I'm left with just football. And I say, you know what? It's a guy that's already committed to the University of Arkansas. He's the #1 player in the country. And I just looked at his stats. I said, okay, I'm going to make my cheat sheet just like he made his. I'm going to rush for 2,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, take the school to their first state championship, put the city on the map, and that'll give me some offers, and that'll get me a full ride scholarship back to the University of Georgia. So Justin, I go in full speed ahead. My first game in my junior year, we start off the season 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. First time in school history, 5-0. Yep. We look up 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, 9-0. In the regular season, 10-0. The get out of Arkansas plan is working, Justin. 3 games to the playoffs, 1 game state championship. 11th game, we win that game. 12th game, we win that game. 1 way from the state championship game, Justin. We play this team called Valonia. We drive up into the middle of nowhere. We pretty much play on a cow pasture that hadn't been mowed and the field was soaking wet. And that game was 7-0 for 3 quarters. They end up going up 21-7. We lose this game. So the get out of Arkansas plan crashes. It burns. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. But little did I know, letters and offers start to come in from all these universities, right? So that summer, I get a chance to visit all these universities, Arkansas, Georgia's, LSU's, Ole Miss's, Michigan State, Ohio's. And then I'm starting to weed down all these places because I realized I wanted to go to Georgia. So in the midst of all these offers starting to come with interest letters, I go to my last camp, and it's at the University of Arkansas, a place I didn't plan on going anyway. And as the camp ended, I jumped for a ball, and I came down funny. I kind of came down on my knee wrong, but no biggie because I ended up going to the doctor, and they said it was a torn meniscus. Meniscus is no sweat. 3 weeks, get a scope done, you're back. Well, that sudden change happened for me. It just peeled a point in my life because I went in to surgery to get a meniscus done that was going to put me out 3 weeks right before the season started back up. And as I'm getting rolled out the operating room, Justin, I put my hand on my leg and I felt this brace. And this brace came halfway up my thigh. And when I touched that brace was on my leg. And I asked the doctor, I'm still sedated. I said, hey, doc, what's this brace for? And he said, that brace is for your ACL. Yeah. And if you know anything about the ACL industry, that's a year recovery. Yep. So I went in for a surgery and came out with one I didn't supposed to have, and it changed the football landscape because I became obsolete, no longer available to play. And all those football scholarship opportunities that I had slowly but surely went away, where I went from having teams to zero. No options, no choices, no hope, no future, devastating.
Dude, you had every emotion in that very moment right there that you could have. I mean, you went through anger, you went through fear, you went through every single emotion at that moment.
Yes.
How do you get through that?
Well, at that point right there, Justin, it was a couple things that happened. Being mad, frustrated, angry, upset, I always ask, why me, why me, why me? And I say, be careful when you ask that question because sometimes you can answer, you might not be ready for it. So as I'm doing rehab on my bed, I decided to do rehab 3 times a day. And I'm mad, I'm crying, and I'm asking, why me, Lord, why me? And sure enough, I heard the Lord say something to me. He said, hey, I gave you that stage for the glorification of my kingdom, and you was using that stage for your own purpose, selfish, ambitious reasons and goals. So I had to take that stage away from you to get your attention.
And that's strong.
And at that moment, I wasn't sure what was next, but I knew he had a bigger plan for my life because I was making that stage all about me. But really, at the end of the day, it was bigger than me. It was bigger than me. That sports stage was a temporary stage for my permanent purpose, but I also absorbed in what I wanted from it. I wasn't absorbing what I was supposed to be doing with it. So he strips it away from me. And in that moment, I said, look, I'm not sure how this thing gonna work out for me, but all the thing I can do is control the controllables, minimize the variables, and just take massive action. And at that point, I went to work.
Let me pause you right there because you just said three things. You said, I want to control the controllables, minimize something, and then to take decisive action. Say that again?
So control the controllables, minimize the variables, and take massive action.
Can we pause for a second? Your story. I want to dive in. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I want to finish the story, but I want to come back to those 3 points because, brother, I think just listening, and I know where your rest of your story goes because we and I have already talked about this, but that mindset that you just described is at the core fabric of every single business owner out there. Those 3 points.
Absolutely.
So I want to come back to those 3 points, but dude, you got me in the story, man. Now I got to figure out how you got from there to here. You got to walk me through the rest of the path.
So with that being said, not knowing what was next for my life, but knowing, hey, when it comes down to control the controllable, it's a lot of things out of my control. This surgery I already had, it was out of my control. But what can control? I can control my attitude. I can control the work I put in. So when it came down to the work, they had me scheduled to rehab 1 time a day, Justin. Well, I got a machine from my therapist, and then I had appointments with him. I was rehabbing 3 times a day. So I could control that. The variable is making sure you get back in enough time for the season to start or for you to make it back before the playoffs end, which I couldn't make it back in time for the playoffs to end because we ended up going 5-5. So we lost the rest of the games after coming off a 1-loss season. So my mindset was, okay, you got to just get yourself in position where you can perform some form of some fashion. Well, little did I know, the season ends. I didn't make it back for my senior year. And I decided that, hey, you know what? Track is the only sport that's left for me to play. So I decided to go run track. Well, as I'm running track, working on getting my speed back and just working on my mindset, I get this letter in the mail from the University of Tennessee inviting me to come to the Orange and White game, the Spring Fling. Well, little did I know how they even know of me because I didn't even visit Tennessee. I seen Tennessee play once, and that was in 2004, and they was playing against Georgia. And guess what? I was from Georgia, so guess who I was rooting for?
The right team.
Exactly. So I get this letter in the mail, had no idea where it came from. I never even applied to them. So I come on a visit to the University of Tennessee. I get a chance to go to the stadium, meet the players, go meet the coaches. And as I'm up there with the coaches, I walk in, I see Coach Caldwell, Coach Slade, Coach Foreman, and I'm talking to them and say, hey, Derrick, we know how good of a player you are. And unfortunately, we heard about your knee injury. But we saw you on film against 2 guys that was already coming here. And right now, we can't offer you a full ride, but we know if your knee responds how it's capable of responding, we got a full ride scholarship waiting on you. Little did they know that I was out of options, and I was betting on somebody to bet on me because I was betting on myself. And when they gave me the opportunity, I said, sign me up. I didn't even know. They said you can come on as a preferred walk-on. I didn't even know what that was, Justin. I just knew this. I knew where I belonged, and I knew what I was capable of doing. So I just took the opportunity, and sure enough, I get to the University of Tennessee, come in with the #1 recruiting class in the country, and I get to work with this chip on my shoulder because it didn't work out how I thought it was going to work out. There were a lot of different roadblocks that hindered me from getting where I wanted to go, and I felt like I had to go reprove it to myself, reprove it to my teammates, and then go earn it from the coaches. So I went to work, and sure enough, that grind paid off. Even though it took 2 years, it was delayed. Because the first year I go through camp, I come out of camp, I go back to coach and say, hey, coach, I'm here. I made it through camp. Came in with a #1 recruiting class. I got bigger, I got stronger, I got faster. Can I get my scholarship? Coach looked at me and said, no. So I said, okay, maybe I didn't do enough, right? Maybe I need to go back to and do a little bit more. So my second year camp comes. I get bigger, I got stronger, I got faster. I knew my alignments, I knew my assignments, I knew my reads, I knew my checks. I go back to coach when camp ends. I say, hey, coach, can I get my full ride scholarship? And they say no. And at this point, I'm starting to question everything. And I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to transfer. Maybe I need to leave. I know I can go somewhere else. Well, sure enough, that season starts, and we're a couple games into the season, and a good friend of mine, Inky Johnson, gets hurt. Ink gets hurt. A couple days go by, we had a chance to go visit him at the hospital. Well, as we're walking into the hospital as a unit of DBs, Coach Slade is in the front. I'm about 3 guys behind him. And as we come in, I hear Coach Slade say, Inky, how you feeling? And Ink said something that wasn't even supposed to be heard for the whole team. Ink said, hey, coach, I'm at peace. And when he said that, I said, how's this guy at peace? He almost lost his life. How's this guy at peace? His arm is paralyzed. How's this guy at peace? And he's never going to play this game again. And I'm up here mad, frustrated, angry, and upset about a scholarship. And at that point, I realized, Justin, I was missing the message again. I was so caught up in my mess, I was missing the message that the Lord was sending me. I was so busy focused on my personal, selfish, ambitions, reasons, and goals. Again, I was missing the bigger picture. It was bigger than me. So at that moment, I stopped focusing on myself, got locked in with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and started focusing on being a better teammate, being a better leader, being a better son of God, and helping my teammates that was coming from a different background that needed more help than I needed. And when I stopped focusing on me and start helping those guys around me be better players and be better men, sure enough, by the time this next camp came around, I didn't have to go to coach and ask for my scholarship. They came to me and said, hey, Derrick, we're going to give you a full ride scholarship to the University of Tennessee. So when I stopped focusing on myself and started working on this bigger picture, this bigger stage, because this thing was bigger than me, everything worked out in my favor.
You know, Zig Ziglar is perhaps one of my favorite motivational speakers of all times. He often said, if we help others get what they want out of life, we'll get everything we want out of life.
Amen.
And I think you just articulated that in your life story up to this point, that you had this plan, you had this direction, you had this, someone said one time, as I'm thinking through this, they said, you want to see God has a sense of humor, just tell him your plans. So we had our plans, right? And he seems to, you know, he knows what's best. He knows how to adjust us to get us in the right direction. And lo and behold, you made some life adjustments. D-Lo, I got to tell you, man, as we're sitting here in 2020, that story resonates with so many of our listeners. Maybe not the exact, you know, the football dream, going to go to University of Georgia, moving around the country in the Southeast. But ultimately, so many business owners right now are feeling that frustration, that it's not working out the way I thought. I got to tell you, I was talking with a business owner that just bought a business in February of this year. Think about it. Just bought a business, signed on the dotted line for almost $1 million, was getting ready to retool the whole team, and lo and behold, they're shut down for 12 weeks. Cannot actually do work. I mean, that is amazing when you think of business. Whenever you think of, you know what, we've got individuals out there who's worked their whole life to develop this business that now they feel like they've been set back 15, 20 years. I was thinking with one of our individuals whose retail shop was vandalized due to some of the looting that was happening in one of these major metropolitan areas. And she's like, I don't have anything. It's all gone. So I want to come back to those 3 points that you mentioned earlier, controlling the controllable. As you said, and I was trying to write them down really fast. So give it to me one more time, and I just want to nail those 3 points down.
Control the controllables, minimize the variables, and take massive action.
All right. So let's go through these points here and let's apply it to business. As you've applied it in your personal life, whenever we're talking to business owners, how would you define controlling the controllables in a business relationship?
So this is what I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to take it from football straight to business. So
Sweet.
In sports, especially in football, you know you're going to play a team. You know they're going to try to prevent you from winning. You know you got these goals that you want to go to the SEC championship, the national championship. So each and every day, you're practicing, preparing for whoever team's on the schedule for the week. Well, you know, they got to start quarterback, they got to start running back, you know, they got to get safety, you know, they got to get D-line. So you controlling the controllables, you know what your strengths are. And you know what you can do best. You know what plays work for you. You know the best place that you're going to call, that you can bank on, that you can depend on. So controlling the controllables or executing the things that you know you can execute on. So when it comes down to the business world, okay, the business got shut down. What controllable things can you control? Okay, the inventory I was having, did I have enough of it? Did I have too much of it? My staff, did I have too many of them? Was I running lean and mean? Did I need to be online? Did I need to be offline? What type of stuff did I need to be doing that I should have been doing, that I was kind of not really keeping track of? How was I budgeting and managing my processes or my finances? Was I kind of just spending it because I had it? So what things can you control in the midst of the shutdown? So that would be a lot of different variables that people can think about. What can I control based off the things that are out of my hand? Okay, we might be closed down for 12 weeks, but what are those things I can be controlling that are in my hand right now, regardless of the situation? So that's what I mean by controlling the controllable, because you know, at the end of the day, you're going to have opposition when it comes down to sports, definitely in football. You're going to have a defense that's going to try to stop your offense from scoring. You know, you got a game plan, and it's going to be there to prevent you from executing your game plan. Well, in business, you have a game plan, and there are going to be things that's going to be there to prevent you from reaching your game plan. You got competition. So at the end of the day, what things can you control that regardless of the competition, whatever they do, you still can execute your game plan, call your best play, and put your best foot forward every single day in business?
You know, one of the coolest stories I heard that illustrates what you just described was in the infancy of the COVID, whenever the government mandated shutdown for restaurants. And, you know, the hospitality industry, they've been blistered. I mean, it was amazing that so many of them survived. But this restaurant, which was in South Dakota, I followed the story greatly. They looked down, they said, look, we're not prepared for online sales. We can't do the call ahead and order. We weren't prepared for that. We're not prepared. We can't have people come into our actual restaurant and physically feed them because of regulations, but we have a huge inventory of supplies. Not only that, but we have a supplier who will give us as much as we want of, you'll love this, toilet paper, soap, napkins, silverware, plastic utensils, styrofoam cups, anything and everything. All the other restaurants just stopped. Well, all of a sudden, this restaurant became a delivery service for those products that were so much on the need at that particular point. They changed, they controlled, as you said, control the controllable, and they end up massively making profits during the business. Not only did they help their customers, they made an unbelievable marketing plan during this time. They didn't even feed it. They didn't put any food out, none whatsoever. They just simply delivered the supplies from the supply house because the big box stores of the world couldn't get it out fast enough. This company ended up changing the design. So, brother, that is a direct example of controlling the controllables I've ever seen one.
Brother, they even went to number 2. They did all 3. They minimized the variables.
Exactly. So let's dive into that minimize the variables. What do you typically see for, you know, I know we're talking the meta narrative, the larger, the macroeconomics of here, but how do you minimize the variables whenever you're dealing with business during a pivot or during a change that kind of blindsides us?
So just like you just spoke from that company I'm gonna go from sports to that company to in general. So from sports, if you know you got this incredible DN that causes havoc, you're gonna make sure he's getting double teamed. You're gonna make sure somebody's chipping him. If you know you got this receiver, he's gonna get doubled. You're not gonna let that person beat you. So when it came down to that particular company right there, minimizing the variables, they said, okay, they can't come in our restaurant to get the food because somebody might get sick or whatever it looks like. We don't have stuff set online to call ahead. So we can take some things that we get enough of. This is a variable for us, and we can go help other people get this. So when it comes down to variables in business, there are going to be a lot of different things that can come up and hinder you or that can help you. Minimizing the variables just means if you do the things you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and how you're supposed to do it, it's going to prevent those things from hindering you. You do those things that you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and how you're supposed to do it. It's going to prevent the DN from coming and smacking your quarterback. So when it comes down to minimizing those variables, businesses got many variables just based off the vertical that you're in and industry that you're in. But you know what those pivotal things are that can hinder your business, that can set your business down. So in the midst of COVID, okay, that's already one thing. You can't get consumers to come to you. You might not be able to sell online. You might not be able to deliver. But whatever the things you can do those things you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to do it. And now you just minimize those variables from going against you. And then you can execute at the highest level. So the minimizing variables works across the board. You just got to realize what are the variables. And that's doing the self-assessment and realizing, okay, this is my business. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. If I don't do these things, we can't do X, Y, and Z. If I do these things, we can perform like X, Y, and Z. So the businesses, the owners just got to make those self-assessments on what those variables could be. And you see it every single day in athletics. Absolutely. So, you know, another thing we see every day in athletics is massive action.
I love the fact you put massive in front of that. You know, if I know one thing about business owners, it is we are not scared to act most of the time. Most of the time. The reason why I say most of the time is I would never forget an interview with Mike Tyson where he says, "You have a game plan." He goes, "Yeah, everybody has a game plan until they get hit in the face once." You know, I just remember that. It all goes out the window. One things that I know business owners will do is that we will charge hell with a water pistol every day of the week. We will. I said throughout this entire COVID crisis that I will bet on the American business owner every single day of the week. I will, because we are not scared of massive action. Now, sometimes we go into paralysis, right? Sometimes we get kicked out. I mean, we get our face stomped in on that football field and we're laying there gasping for air thinking, sweet Jesus, please make it stop. Whenever you see massive action, let's do the same thing. Let's take it from football to business. How do you see massive action kind of relay in the football field?
Man, so a prime example was the national championship game. You got Clemson, you got LSU. So that game that we saw, if they didn't see it, you can go watch the reruns because that's all that's showing anyway. But Clemson came out in a defense that most people had never seen before, and LSU only seen once, and that was months earlier when they played against Auburn. But they came out in like a 7-1-3 defense. It was unorthodox. So they switched the format up so much that, honestly, Joe Burrow wasn't sure how to respond, how to read what he normally reads so he can react and hit who he need to hit. Well, that took action right there for them to change the game plan up. And they did a heck of a job that first quarter. LSU was shook. Well, LSU took massive action because they made the adjustments to being shook in that first half. And that second half, it was a whole different team on the field. So Clemson took massive action, and that got them so far. But Clemson took action, that got them so far. LSU took massive action, that won them the national championship. Yep. So when it comes down to business, all right, business owner, you took action, they got your business started. They got you to 500,000, they got you to $1 million plus, they got you to 10 million plus. Okay, that's action. But COVID-19 hit, then you got to take massive action. What you did to get you here is not going to keep you here. What you did to get this far is not going to take you where you want to go. So the massive action is when you said, okay, I thought I did everything I could do. Well, no, it's time for me to make some adjustments with these setbacks, with these adversities that I hit, with the distractions that then happen, and how can I get above and beyond and get to where I want to go in the midst of the noise, in the midst of people being distracted, in the midst of things being shut down, in the midst of things might not be able to ship, in the midst of might having to deliver stuff. Like, that's the massive action that it's going to take to get you where you want to go. So business owners, we don't have a problem taking action. That's why we decided to become entrepreneurs and do the work. But once this COVID-19 thing has hit, it's going to take massive action for you to prevail and get where you want to go, because what got you here won't get you where you want to go. So that's the idea of massive action when you break it down to a business owner mindset.
You know, I don't think you've ever heard me say what got us here won't get us there. I've said that at least a dozen times in the last week with business owners. And as a teaching point here to kind of drive home what Derrick's talking about, when you start a business, if those of you watching us on YouTube, if you're not, go check us out on YouTube. Derrick's a lot prettier than I am. But you'll look on YouTube and you'll see that I'm drawing my finger from right to left. From left to right. And whenever you start a business, you kind of trend down a little bit. So the curve kind of drops down a little bit. And that's just basic starting business. You deal with expenses. You're trying to figure out which way's up, all those things. And then all of a sudden you go into maybe a year, maybe 2 years, 3 years, depending on what type of business you're in. You go into a grand growth. You go into a nice growth ring, almost like an airplane taking off from the runway. It just starts heading up. But then you run to the point in any business to where you go into a stagnation, whether it's maybe your personal capabilities are stretched. Maybe it's you can't pour any more energy of intellect out of you, the business owner's mind. Maybe you have to, your product maybe became stale. Maybe your service has been saturated at some point. And then the business goes into a stagnation. If you don't change, you actually go into atrophy. You actually start dropping back in business. And so we call it the S-curve of business. And the only way to disrupt or to change that S-curve is to do exactly, Derrick, what you're talking about, that massive action. You've got to disrupt. We call it disruptor in business. You've got to come in and just blow things up. Right now with COVID, brother, we have seen the ability more than ever almost forced ability, forced on us, that if we want to stay in business, we are almost have to take massive action. So let me ask you this question. How do you determine, when looking at the decision to make massive action, how do you determine which action is going to yield the desired results? I mean, action for the sake of taking action is just lunacy, right? I mean, you've got to have some sort of a thought process to take you there. So in football, whenever you're dealing with a disruption like the Clemson LSU game, how do you eliminate, or how do you determine which action to take?
So I'm glad you asked that. So I'm gonna give you this formula, and this is how we can take it and break it down. So this is called the transition formula. So the formula is T plus C equals ST. So the first T stands for takeaway. So when you think about the action you took in the past, when you think about football, you think about the plays you done called in the past, all season long or just this game, you know which ones work, which ones got you explosive plays, which is 20 yards or more. So in the business, that's going to be an explosive play, which got you some big time gains. So you know what plays you've called that have worked. So when it comes down to taking the best action, the first thing you do an assessment on your takeaways based off the games you've been in, the situation you've been in, the businesses that you've had so far, the results. What are the best plays you done called in the past? What are the principles? What did you learn from them? How did you execute on it? All right. What didn't work? What did work? Evaluate it. Once you know what those takeaways are, those things that work for you, the next thing you got to ask yourself, okay, in the midst of COVID, this is the C, the correlate. How do those principles, how do those big wins, how do those explosive plays, how do they carry over? How do they correlate right now? Okay, I can do this. I know that it'll give me a certain amount of yards on the field. If I do this, and this, I know that's going to give me a certain amount of income in my business. Once you know how those things correlate to where you're at right now, you got to ask yourself, okay, if that correlates, let me do that 4 or 5 times in a game, or let me do that 4 or 5 times in my business, or 4 or 5 times a day. You got to upscale that play, call that play more often. That's working for you.
Right.
Once you realize you can call that play more often in the format based off the business and the situation that you're in, the next thing you got to do, you got to carry over that same game plan. So now I got I done correlated it. Now I'm going to carry it over so I can apply it. So now, okay, I know more best plays to call. I know how I can get the results I want by correlating to the situation I'm in right now, and then I'm going to carry it over, and I'm going to execute that game plan and call my best play. I'm going to call this post route 5 times this game or 5 times this quarter until they figure out how to stop it. I'm going to deliver all this stuff from this warehouse to every other restaurant in this area in North Dakota until I run out of this product. I'm going to call this same play in my business until this thing don't work no more. So if you do those, the takeaway, if you correlate it to where you're at right now or where you're looking to go in the future and decide, okay, the level of action I need to take on it to get where I want to go, you can carry it over and then apply those things that you've took away, you've correlated, and then you carry it over. And if you do that right, the T plus the C plus the C is going to equal a ST, which is a successful transition. That successful transition is the outcome that you want. That's the massive action. That's the touchdown at the buzzer against Georgia. That's the play in North Dakota, the restaurant in North Dakota that expanded their business without even delivering food. So that transition formula is the way you can scale it if you just take the time to break it down.
Friends, you're listening to my dear friend Derrick Furlow. Derrick Furlow. DerrickFurlow.com is his website address. We're going to put a link to his YouTube channel and a couple other free copies of his book he's written, and some other things I'd like for you to check out in the link in the show notes below. You can see it in the YouTube channel. You can also see it in whether you're listening to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're checking us out at. Check the show notes out below and give my friend D'Lo a shout out on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can connect with him at. So Derrick, I asked this one question. This will be my last question for you today. And it's a little tough one. It's a tough question. I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to give you a second to think while I kind of lay it up for you. But the question I have is this. You have one chance, one moment, 1 second to give that one pearl of wisdom to the people who are listening to your voice. And you'll never be given that chance ever again in your lifetime. My question is going to be is what message you leave them? And as you think about that question of what message, if you had one chance, one opportunity, 1 second, and never again will you be able to communicate to these same individuals listening to our voices right now, what would you tell them? As you're thinking about that, you made a statement earlier talking about, we asked why. I had somebody just text in. They said, hey, just today, said, man, I know I'm not supposed to ask why. And I said, no, that's never the question. Even Jesus himself said, why God, have you forsaken me, as he's died on the cross. So we ask why always, but you and I, in our private conversation, we talk about that we are being prepared, as you illustrated through your story. We're being prepared what we are being prepared for. We have gone through these hard times in life. We get knocked down. We get our teeth punched in. We deal with COVID. We deal with heartache. We deal with some very tough things in life, ultimately because we have a purpose that only you or I or whoever is listening to our voices can fulfill. And we don't give up on that purpose. We don't check out earlier than we should. We stay in the game until we fulfill that purpose. So as I'm laying that out there, knowing that we're dealing with a lot of pain right now in our country, we're dealing with a lot of anxiety, we're dealing with a lot of brokenness across many different segments of our country right now. D-Lo, man, what is the one thing, last chance, tell anybody that's listening to your voice, what would that pearl of wisdom be?
I'll honestly tell them you can't do it by yourself. You got to lean on the Lord. And when you think you're leaning on the Lord, lean heavy on the Lord. Because at the end of the day, everything works out for the good of those who love the Lord. So I know everything worked out in my life because I was leaning on him. I thought I knew the way, and then he showed me the way. I thought it was going to work out and go my way, and then he made it go a different way, but it still worked out. So I would just say, don't try to do this thing alone. This thing is bigger than you, and when you lean on the Lord, it'll work out exactly how it's supposed to work out.
Man, friends, we've had this, by no means is a preaching show, but man, we've had a lot of people through this COVID situation just echo what you just said, D-Lo, over and over and over again, that, man, we go through hard times, we deal with business, and even whenever business is not hard and the world's not crazy, business is tough. I mean, you and I both know that. We deal with this thing. So, man, I love that. Lean on the Lord. I love that so much. Brother, we're going to have them go to your DerrickFurlow.com. We're also going to put a link to your YouTube channel. We also got the ChampionsCheatCode.com, which is where you can get a link to a free book from Derrick. What are some, if we're signing off here, man, can people connect with you on social media? How would you advise them to connect with you?
If they're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they can find me at Derrick, D-E-R-R-I-C-K, Furlow, F-U-R-L-O-W. Feel free to reach out, connect, let's engage, let's interact. I give away free content every day to impact, inspire, and empower. So hopefully we can help you do what you do. So in the midst of this transition, you can transition like a champion.
Impact, inspire, and empower. I love it. Those are his 3 words. If you check out his website, you'll see that on the website. Derrick, man, thanks for joining us today on the Financially Simple Podcast, brother.
Justin, thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. So look, friends, I know life is hard. I know it. Derrick's even talking about some of his story in life. Life gets hard sometimes, but man, life is good. Life is good. Sun arose today. Sun will be up tomorrow. You're going to hear a bird sing if you just walk outside. Life is good. Life can get frustrating. It can. Money doesn't have to be. Hey, we're going to continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Y'all go out and make it. Got to make it. It's not going to happen unless you make it a great day. Y'all go out. Take care.